Hey.
So many things that held us down, but now it looks like things are finally coming around. We've got a long way to go.
Hey.
I don't know. We're gonna pull our stuff together. We're gonna silence our fire.
Hey.
Ain't ever been held down before, and no, you will refuse to be held down anymore. Nothing. I want you to listen. Hey! All right, Ebony. We're out of breath by the time we get started.
Alexa, pause.
Hey.
Yes, I have a treat for you tonight. If you're wondering who is this wonderful person next to me, it is Kevin Ross, Pastor Kevin Ross, Reverend Kevin Ross. I like to call him Dr. Kevin Ross. Okay. And if you're not familiar with Reverend Kevin Ross, he is so much to our community. I met him and his wife a couple of years ago, Anita Ross, who is over Women for Equality. She started that organization, and she leads the Racial Healing Conference here in Sacramento. And she started that actually in response to the Stephon Clark murder. And so these two, the power duo, have been really instrumental in my life. His wife texts me often. And Pastor Kevin has even invited me to his church. I got a box. You know what's in this box? It's a whole bunch of positive messages saying you belong. You're beautiful. We love you. And they were given to me by Kevin Ross, Pastor Kevin Ross's congregation, because he invited me to be in front of his congregation. And he did an interview in front of his congregation. And not everybody knew what trans was in his congregation, but he took the risk. A Black reverend from Morehouse. That's his alma mater. He's a Morehouse man, same college as Martin Luther King. I think that's what inspired him to go to Morehouse. He's been serving humanity, as I would say, for over 20 years. So he looks young, but honey, he's been in this game for a while. And he's an author of Designer Life. He likes to, or he says, you know, it's a book from becoming victorious, going from being a victim to being victorious. He's been a chaplain at the U.S. Congress. He's done an opening prayer. He's shared the stage with Nelson Mandela and a lot of other influential leaders. I think he has Oprah on speed dial. Michael Beckwith is one of his mentors. You know, I can go on and on, but I would want him to actually give you a better explanation of who he is. Welcome, Reverend Kev. Thank you.
Thank you, Ebony, and thank you, everybody, for rocking out with us. I love that first little bit there. You know, most of these type shows we don't get to rock out, so that's a plus already.
Thank you.
I am Kevin Cottrell Ross. My friends call me Rev Kev, and so can you. I'm really on a mission to inspire everyday people to live extraordinary dreams. And I believe that we're all here with a unique purpose to awaken to our divine nature and be a force for good in the world. I think every one of us deserves to live a life, and I say every one of us, and then we're going to look at everyone. I believe that every one of us deserves to live a life of purpose, passion, peace, and prosperity. And I also believe that we are here to co-create a world that works for all. And that is something that I have dedicated my life to. And it is work. It is not this co-creation of a world that works for all really really puts you on the front lines and puts you out in a way that for many is in ministry can be very uncharted territory. And so because when you say all, you got to mean all, you know. And so one of my core values is that of inclusion, and to live inclusion is for me to model after the master teacher, Jesus the Christ. And so this has been a great part of my life's work and my commitment. And yes, I did go to Morehouse and following my spiritual mentor, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his spiritual mentor, Howard Washington Thurman, and Dr. King, as we all know, was very much about inclusion. And it cost him a great deal. You know, he was a Baptist minister who got kicked out of the National Baptist Convention for holding this inclusive worldview. He talked about a world house. They wanted him to talk about, you know, the Baptist agenda at that time. So he was someone who I always aspired to be like, and I do not. I would not dare try to equate myself to him and his tremendous contribution. But I am looking as much as I can to follow his philosophy and his pattern of life. And so with that, I'm excited to answer any questions or participate in any way I can today.
Well, I just want to say this is a great honor. Thank you for making time. You had service today. You've been going all day, and you made time for us. Thank you. So our topic today is Black church trauma. Healing from pain and church house rejection. Because I know a lot of our community, a lot of Black, trans, LGBT folks, we haven't been welcomed in church spaces. We have a lot of trauma behind church spaces. So I'm extremely appreciative of this pastor for coming on with a openly Black trans woman and having some dialogue that's gonna be deep. So I appreciate that. A Black male pastor, married, all these things, coming on and letting us know that we're loved. So I appreciate that.
But Ebony, I have to just say right away, this is, for me, this is not a risky thing. This is not a bold thing. I don't find this to be anything but me being consistent with what I have come to know and understand about the master teacher, Jesus the Christ, you know, the my way shower, elder brother, and modeling his example. He made it very much his business to align himself with those who were most marginalized in his lifetime. And so this is first nature for me. This is not a stretch of any kind on my part. And as we get further into the conversation, I hope to help you see how I see it even more.
I appreciate that. I'm here to learn. So we'll start. So have you witnessed people being rejected by the church? And how did that make you feel?
Well, I can speak from my own experience. I grew up in this what we call expanded consciousness philosophy, this new thought teaching. And my minister was a Black female, the late Reverend Dr. Johnnie Colemon in Chicago, Illinois. So my orientation toward faith in the city of Chicago was always not within the mainstream way of thinking and way of approaching religion. Because even growing up, having a female minister, in a society, and particularly in Chicago, where the churches in the Black community were headed by all men. It was just a boys' club, and then Johnnie Coleman comes along, and she builds the first mega church in the city of Chicago, 5,000 people, 3,500 acres, um, 35. What was it? 35, 52 acres. I'm sorry, 52 acres, an elementary school, student housing, um, a restaurant. She does all of this, right? And so she carved out this trail for women in ministry. So I witnessed from just my birth, growing up in that environment, what it meant to be a trailblazer within the religious community. Now, my grandmother went to a Kojic church that was right down the street from my house. And so I would go to my church in the mornings and then come back, and they were just getting fired up for the afternoon service. And my grandmother wanted me to come and sing in the choir with her and all that. So I would come and participate and, hang out. But as I was doing this, they found out what church I went to there. And so the manner in which they talked about me and teased me, and you in that cult church, and you in that, it's blasphemous for a woman to be a preacher and all. So I started to see early on how not Christ-like Black people in church could be. And I was like 7, 8 years old coming along when I started to experience the kind of discrimination, abuse from within church. And then when I was at Morehouse, I was in the pre-seminary program with some wonderful colleagues there at the King Chapel, and also experienced the same kind of Black elitist religious chauvinism that was ensconced within Christianity. And so it's very theologically violent, okay, philosophically harsh, and just did not ever emulate to me what I felt that we should be seeing from those saying that they follow Jesus. So personally, I've experienced the rejection, and I've had to prove myself over and over again before I knew that I didn't have to prove myself. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I know it very well, and I know it extends beyond my experience. It extends the church itself. When I say church, I'm air quotes, because there's those who align themselves with the teachings, and I'm just, since we're talking, theologically, the teachings and the pattern of Jesus, the behavior and the way of Jesus, and then there's the establishment, the institutions, and the history of the church in general has always carried with it a type of violence within it. Okay, let's think about the Crusades. This whole thing of evangelical imperialism. We will conquer you in the name of Jesus. And so this is encoded within the DNA of the evolution of church within society. And so slavery in and of itself, right? Slavery was overseen by the church. And the most horrific, the most violent, the most dehumanizing act imaginable that could occur to Black people was inflicted upon us by Christians, white Christians. And somewhere along the way, rather than rejecting Christianity altogether, I don't even know how Black folks would be able to still embrace Christianity unless they found a different kind of Jesus than was presented to us. Because to embrace Christianity, that same Christianity that enslaved us, that abused us, that dehumanized us, it's a stretch. It's to say that. So hurt people hurt other people, and so this is how it's happened for women. It's happened for members of the LGBTQIA community. And it's a thing that we've got to stop and reevaluate. Am I operating in the way in which the master would want us to operate, or am I continuing the institutionalization that comes along with church? So I'll stop right there.
I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, this leads me to my next question.
Mm-hmm.
So being around all that violence, church violence, even in college,
Mm-hmm.
Where you saw prestigious church violence, how did that influence you? And how did you evolve? Because you had to evolve being around all that influence. I'm sure you picked up a little bit of thought, like maybe this is wrong. Maybe these people are wrong. Maybe I'm thinking in the wrong way. How did your thinking evolve? How did you become more awake in your acceptance of different type of people, in your theology? How did that happen?
For me, Ebony, it began with me embracing. First of all, it began with me recognizing that I would have to become super articulate in what I said my faith believed, despite who was in front of me. So it made me root down deeper, dig deeper, because when you have a peer group that does not accept you, that rejects you, that scoffs at your theology and philosophy, as I did experience, I had to really dig within myself more and more to demonstrate the truth that I said that I know. And so I became extremely successful with leading different groups on the campus at Morehouse. Hundreds of people would follow me in different organizations, and my peers could make, I don't know how he does it. He's not in the club, but boy, he's built this following alongside him. There's something to him. And so what began to happen was it earned the respect of my mentor, Dr. Lawrence Carter Sr. at Morehouse. Ultimately, it caused many of my peers to, if I can't stop his spirit, I'm just gonna respect him. I'm gonna respect his walk. And so eventually, people began to see from me that he's congruent. He lives his thing, and nothing we throw at him is throwing him off. And that's what I had to really get clear on. So they actually helped sharpen me. They didn't, their criticism and their lack of support, didn't deter me, to the extent that of all the people that the dean came to when he was having a personal crisis, he came to me for counsel. And as a result, he started practicing my theology and changed the entire chapel theology out of that till this day. So the New Thought philosophy is the undergirding philosophical structure within the dean at Morehouse College to this day. So, yes, and we can go down and get you some receipts for that.
I need the receipts.
because there's a difference between, and I love my colleagues, and many of them now we're close and we stay connected. But in those formative years, it was more than about mimicking the preachers that we knew, because that's the thing that in your formative years, black preachers, young black preachers see, try to act like other preachers that they see, versus living out their theology, living it out when it's hard, living it out when it's inconvenient. And part of our teaching had always taught us to see everyone as perfect, whole, and complete, every person as a part of the family of God, to hold this, even to turn the other cheek when you're being, and that kind of behavior, turn the other cheek behavior, doesn't mean that I allow myself to be the subject of abuse, but I did not allow them to turn me bitter. Man, he just, the more we squeeze him, the better he shines. The more we come for him, the better, that kind of thing. We can't do anything with this guy. He is unstoppable. He's winning awards. He's on Oprah. He's in national magazine. What? So this sort of resolve and resilience to form and retransform, myself, had been really my major journey throughout life, to the extent that I have recognized that I belong on the fringe, that the mainstream is often the place and the space to get caught up in the vices and devices of exclusion, drama, racism, sexism, elitism, homophobia, Islamophobia, all of that's going on in the mainstream. And so it's be in the world, but not of it. And to be not of it meant I have to come on out, from among that kind of thing that could also seep into the church.
Well put. So for people who, like me, who have been rejected, I don't know if you know, my mom's a pastor. She's from
I remember you telling me.
Town in Jamaica. So she never knew anything about like trans or LGBT.
Sure.
She was a pastor of her own church until she decided to go to a Kojic church. And I noticed she didn't sit on the pulpit. They made her evangelist instead of pastor. But so I grew up in Kojic too, but I have a lot of trauma behind church. A lot of Black LGBT have a lot of trauma behind church. When they hear the word church, when they hear the word God, it's like slapping them in the face. They feel pain. They really physically feel it,
Sure.
What do you have for those people? What can you say to help those people? Because right now is a time people are looking for spirituality. They also have trauma behind spirituality. And how could you, do you have a word to help them now?
Let's talk a little bit about the church. Just one more thing. The Black church is a traumatized church. The Black church is Black people who are moving through their own form of post-traumatic slave disorder. That is a thing that is where we have not fully healed from as a collective. And so what is often felt within the churches that do not accept people who are LGBTQIA, or who do not accept women in leadership and all of that, it is less about forwarding a biblical message and more about this cultural phenomenon that enters into their use or misuse of scripture, or abuse of scripture. So keep this in the background. Hurt people. And until we get beyond the hurt, because when I'm hurt, I what do? I want to close. I want to defend. I want to club up. So I close ranks inside of hurt. I don't throw my arms up. And so once I feel safe with we're safe. These few people, okay, good. We got it. We know how to do it. Inside of that, then letting other folks in may create more hurt or embarrassment or loss of status within society, all of those sorts of things. So there's this philosophy of hurt that needs to be explored as it relates to our collective community among African people of African descent in the United States. Let's talk directly to our LGBTQI brothers and sisters who are watching. So,
and gender nonconforming.
And gender nonconforming.
Yeah.
And everybody. All
Everybody.
Let me talk. Let me help you to look at how I see this. Okay? Because sometimes church is just it's so loaded a word that we've started using terms like spiritual community. We started using terms that don't trigger such reactivity, and church is not just that for your community, it's that for many who have seen abuses. Look at the Catholic Church and what they've done with children and all. So a lot of people have triggers around the term church. But community is something that we all thrive in and aspire toward. And what I want to say directly to the community that you belong to is that before you took on a physical form, you were a soul, a pre-incarnate soul. That soul that chose a body, is all I'm interested in, first and foremost. So that's what I'm looking at the soul. I want you to know that, as you said, we're all in drag. We're all in drag. Your soul clothes itself with a physical body. That physical body then has found itself a gender assignment, right? But inside of all of that, you're more than your gender assignment. You're more than all of that. Okay? You're this soul that was sent here. You were sent here. And because you have been sent, it means you have a definite assignment. And certainly what I think the LGBTQIA, gender nonconforming community is sent here to do is to evolve humanity to a higher level of expression. So the evolution of humanity, starting out as homo no. What's the term I'm thinking of? Neanderthal. Then we move to Homo erectus.
Yeah.
Then Homo sapiens sapien. And then there are other evolutions. And so there's the next leap I think that's coming is Homo universalis. This human who when he is fully matured, he practices what I term harmosexuality. Harmosexuality. HARMO sexuality. Harmosexuality. And what is this? This is when the soul of any being is at peace with all of the ways in which gender presents itself within a body. Okay? What we have done within the church is demonize femininity in any way, shape, or form. The feminine quality has always been demonized within Scripture. And they found the woman in adultery. But they didn't call out the men. They're about to stone the woman. And the Scripture says, and not counting the women and children, there were 5,000 fed. So there's this what's called a hermeneutics of suspicion. And the hermeneutics of suspicion by Elizabeth Schussler Fiorenza, a Harvard scholar, talks about the fact that anytime that we are looking at Scripture, we want to be suspicious of patriarchal language that excludes a part of society. So to take that a little bit deeper. So there's always been this exclusion of the feminine or the demonization of the feminine within Scripture. Okay. Now we take it a cut further. So then what do? I then demonize the feminine aspects of my nature. Okay. But if we go back to that same passage and start, really, not the same passage, but same Bible, in Genesis, it says, and God said, let us make man in our image and after our likeness. This hour speaks to the masculine, feminine nature of the one source. Oh, wait, let's come on in here, y'all. Come on. Now we're about to get some the masculine, feminine nature in the one source. Let us make humanity in our image. This hour speaks to the encoding of the creative. The encoding of the creative process is always both masculine and feminine. However, history has managed to do a number on the feminine. And so individuals who are male possessing feminine traits and qualities that come up against a culture that's anti-feminine in any way, shape, or form destroys the self-worth and self-esteem and self-confidence of one who may embrace more of his feminine nature or may express more of that, and vice versa. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
So this idea of our evolution coming to a place of homosexuality, wherein first we understand the harmony of the harmony in the one source.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is not within conflict. It's not in conflict to see Father, Mother, God, God, Goddess, that dynamic of co-creative source. And then I can identify within myself the masculine, the feminine. I had uncles who were so mean to me because as a creative, to be creative, I would be in the feminine aspect of my nature. You can't be a creative and be in the masculine side. No, just forget about it. That's not a part of creativity. Comes from the feminine aspect of the self. And so that feminine aspect of the self frightened some of my uncles. Oh, you sissy, you bag, you done. And they would beat me and abuse me and really, try to trounce out that part of me, but it didn't work. It didn't work because you know why? For one reason only. At that time, I had a female preacher, and I didn't know anything about male preachers at the time. Now I want you to think about that. Think about that for a minute. So my orientation toward what power and leadership and all that looked like started out by seeing that through a feminine lens.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as I evolved, I've always been able to coexist within a powerful masculine feminine dynamic. Here's what I say about hypermasculinity, right? Women who take on leadership but feel like they have to emasculate men around them in order to be powerful. You don't have to do that. You don't want to do that. Let's get to a place where we can harmonize both dimensions of that quality within ourselves. So homosexuality, this idea of all of us being able to embrace those aspects of ourselves, because we're lying if we're telling ourselves that I don't have both masculine and feminine. It's encoded in everything we are. And this is where machismo comes from. That's where all that comes from. My defensiveness around it. I don't want you to find out that I am a little soft in places. You should be a little soft in places, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're a human being. So I already forgot the question, but I hope the answer.
Well, you gave us a good word, honey.
So to go, I got the question. So, to my brothers, to my sisters, who are trying to find their way back toward their spirituality and create safe places within community. Spiritual community is what we refer to it as. If you have the courage to walk into a place like Unity, I think you will be on the first step toward your healing. So I want to point you to some places and spaces that you don't have to go in and try and reframe. You don't have to go in and try to undo yourself. And I also want you to walk in a realistic way, right? I'm going to have to put some skin in the game as well. So let's say if you're the first trans person to walk into a Unity community, right? You want to grab that preacher who's going to be so welcoming of you, but also help the community to evolve so that we can be inclusive. This is a thing that is so important because there has to be this co-creative way in which we expand community. But what I want you to know is that if you walk into my spiritual community, you're going to be embraced and loved and affirmed. I'm Unity of Sacramento, but there are also 1,000 unities around the world. There are centers for spiritual living around the world. There's my good sister out in City of Refuge, out in Oakland, nearby. So there are places and spaces that that are living beyond this conversation, or living into these conversations. As a part of our everyday spiritual practice. It's what love looks like to us and for us. But I do know that there's a great need for healing. There's a great need for healing. But if you can see yourself as a whole, perfect, and complete soul who leaped into a physical form and is finding your way within your gender identity, as only a part of your spiritual journey. That's only a part of you. You got business to take care of here on this planet. So your whole thing ain't go. Please don't make your whole thing on the planet your gender identity and fitting in. That's a piece, because you're still a soul. You're still a soul on assignment. Right? It's just like me. It's just like me being black. You know, my whole goal in life is to work out how am I gonna, integrate into society as a black man. So I know I got to do that, and I'm still a soul, and that's how we see you, and that's how I can love you as you are, for who you are, Ebony. That's why it ain't no stretch. That's why it ain't no stretch. Yeah.
Thank you, Pastor.
You got it.
Doctor, you gave us a word, and I'm appreciative.
I hope so.
I'm going to go back and look at this video because you gave us some seeds, okay?
All right.
I really appreciate that. Mm-hmm. I also, we're on a time crunch because we have some other interviewees waiting. So I'm sorry to end this so quick. This is so good. I'm getting spiritually fed. But before we end, I always ask my guests, do you have one word that Spirit is giving you that you're picking up, that's been on your mind, that you can think of right now, that you can give the people and expound on that word, that one word?
Courage. And courage is your self-defined permission to be. Your self-defined permission to be. You give yourself permission to be whatever it is you need to be, to do whatever it is you need to do, to have whatever it is you need to have. Courage is your willingness to trust that impulse that is within you will not sell you out. And so stand on it. Stand on it. You're being guided right now. Your courage gives you the permission to be what you feel that impulse within you is calling you toward. And so I say, move forth boldly, confidently, humbly, and fabulously in your courage. In your courage.
Yes. Come on, courage. All right. So, Reverend, how do people get in contact with you? How do you have social media?
Yeah.
I was just watching service today, so I know you.
Did you check it? Okay. Yeah, you can start quickly by downloading the Unity of Sacramento app, which is free on any of your app stores. It's Unity of Sacramento. You can get it there, and of course, inside of the app is loaded with all sorts of free materials. But there's a way to communicate directly with me there. And then I'm RevKevK on Twitter. RevKev, that's what people call me. RevKev. RevKevK. And then RevKevK on Instagram. So you can get me that way. And then my personal website is kevinrossinspires.com. kevinrossinspires.com.
Thank you, Pastor Kev. This has been
You got
great.
it. You got it.
Appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks so much for having me.
A gift, and I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
It was a lot of fun.
Anita and the children, my love.
All right, I will do that.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Love you back. Enjoy.
All right.
Blessings, everybody.
Peace. That was Reverend Kevin Ross. He gave us the word. Yes, he did. We're going to switch gears. And I have some other guests for you. And we're going to talk about the healing of animals, horses to be specific. Here they are. They've been waiting in the rafters, and they're here. So who I have right here next to me is Tammy Chance and Lauren Padillo. I don't know. They may look familiar. Lauren may look familiar because I just wrote about Lauren. Lauren is
Hi, Ebony.
Hi.
Hi, Ebony. Hi. Hi, everyone.
Lauren,
thank you for having us here.
Yeah, thank you. Lauren is works at the Capitol, is a trans civil rights person in Sacramento. And this is Lauren's mom. And,
hi.
She has worked with horses since she was a little girl. And I brought them on to talk about the healing nature of animals and how they're good for mental health. A lot of people are struggling right now because we're living in a time of self-quarantine and self-isolation, and people feel lonely. Some people are weighing out, should I get a pet? And I just wanted to bring folks on that had a love for animals and that could share with us. And I'd like to welcome you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ebony.
Yes.
Thanks for having us.
So we're going to go right in into our questions. Either of you can answer. What got you interested in horses, Miss Tammy? How did you fall in love with horses? How did you fall in love with animals? Have you always been in love with animals?
Yes, I have been.
That's what I wanted to be. When people asked me as a kid, what do you want to be? I would say a vet. Because I had a love for animals too.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to be when I was younger, but I didn't like the sight of blood, so ended up not doing that. But have always been involved with animals. Grew up on a ranch out in Wilton when I was younger. My mom and dad lived out there, so I was fortunate enough to be able to have a horse out there. And it's always been my therapy. My grandmother and my aunts introduced me to horses, which just became my passion ever since I was a little girl.
Yeah. Tell me when you got your first horse.
I was 3.
What was her name?
Her name was Princess. Princess.
What was she?
Pardon me?
What kind of horse was she?
Shetland pony.
Shetland pony. For people who don't know about horses, you don't know what a Shetland pony is. What kind of function do Shetland ponies have? Like, I know they need horses for certain functions.
Yeah, they're great for kids just because they're smaller, stubborn. You can learn to ride on them for sure. They will test you in every way. So it is the best to ride on, and they're small and great with kids.
Oh, okay. If they're small, then I can ride on one.
Yeah.
I need a mare. Not a mare. What's the big ones?
Stallion.
Stallion. Okay. So, Lauren, this is clearly generational. What got you interested?
There's horses everywhere. Yeah. So my mom introduced me I grew up into it. She loved it ever since I can remember, since my entire life basically. But on my 6th birthday, actually, she convinced me to go clean one of the stalls out in the ranch that we always go to, and there was a little pony in there, the same as what she had gotten when she was little. So it kind of was generational. She passed that along to me, and then I just fell in love with every animal since. And yeah, just a little connection with nature, you know. It's very genuine.
Yes.
It's true love.
Wow, I'm glad you said that, because animals do have a purity to them. Horses do have a purity to them.
Yeah.
What makes horses different from other animals? Like, could you answer that? What makes a horse different from a dog, like personality-wise?
Well, they have personalities just like dogs, and just like maybe you have a dog or a cat, they all have different personalities. They're very intuitive, and they all have completely different personalities, just like your domestic animals, dogs and cats. Some are playful, some are mischievous, you know. Ours are usually mischievous.
Yeah. A blessing.
That was wow, I like that.
I think it's like a different like kind of dynamic with trust too, because it's like you're trusting this animal to like keep you safe too, because like, you know, horses are large animals, and I think to trust somebody with your life is like a different thing than like, you know, like trust with a dog. It's like they'll protect you, but this person is like in control of your life too, you know, like you guys have that connection with one another. And I think that was like one of the things that like drew me to horses too, is that they're so like, they're very connected with you, and you can feel like their energy when you ride them, and they can feel yours very much. They will know like how you're feeling. If you're having a rough day, they're going to try you a little bit harder, but it's a cool connective spiritual feeling. It's very different.
So for the both of you, do you rely on the horse? Like, do you go visit your horses when you're having a bad day and you're having a bad mental health day? How has horses been instrumental in bringing you healing and relieving you through some of the roughest times in your life? That's my question.
Most definitely. I go out about every weekend, actually, and that's definitely my therapy, is being out at the ranch. When I say the ranch, where my horse is at is on 40 acres. Very little people, mostly just horses, and lots of ground and area. And I don't know, it's just very peaceful for me just to get away from the city and spend time with my horse out there.
Yeah, you're horsing like yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Do some real deep thinking.
Yeah, and center yourself again. It centers me anyway.
It centers you. That's powerful. Lauren, what about you?
I mean, I go mainly with her when she goes, but I know she takes a lot more spiritual kind of in depth with it than I do. But I definitely feel an energy when I see them. I don't get to go out as often, but when I do, it's like coming home, you know. It's something that I've had my entire life, and I know it's a huge part of who I am and my soul, and just like that kind of what I talked about, that connection with horses is forever, you know. It's like something that you can reconnect with, and just it never goes away, and it's kind of really beautiful to have it like right there with my mom, so connected with that. And I'd see her come home and look how happy she is after I've been riding today. It's just beautiful. Yeah.
Now, there are people probably watching this that want a pet but live in an apartment that can't have pets. Clearly, they can't have a horse in an apartment. Like, what are some suggestions for people who maybe want a pet companion to help them with coping, you know, during these hard times right now? What are some suggestions as far as like self-isolating and maybe wanting a pet? Maybe they're in a place where they can get a pet.
I know I heard a lot of the shelters were fostering out animals for people to take home because the staff couldn't work to clean and feed and all that. I don't know if that's still happening in Sacramento here, but I know that was out there. That's one good way. Kind of gives you a feel of, because they are work. You do have to take them for walks and feed them and clean up after them. So they are some work too, but they also are good for the heart. So I would say fostering, there's adoption, but fostering for sure to see if it's right for you.
Yeah, I would second that. And I know a lot of this, like she said, the shelters are really having like high foster rates right now too. A lot of them are opening up their doors for people to come foster all these puppies that are kind of feeling the same isolation because they don't have their normal influx of people coming for adoptions, So definitely fostering right now is a really big thing. I would say go in contact with your local shelters and your local SPCA, ASPCA, and see if they're taking volunteers at this time, just as many ways as possible. I think there's more than one way to kind of to be a friend to animals too.
Okay, well, if people want to get in contact with you to talk more about pets and animals, which is y'all favorite topic, how can they? Do you have a Instagram? Miss Tammy, do you have a Facebook?
I do. I have a Facebook, and it's Tammy Chance, and it's Facebook. You'll see me on there with a horse.
Yeah. Yep, and my Facebook's right there too. I'll be right there with her. We got tagged in a lot of stuff together.
All right, before we go, I always do this with my guests. You have one word that you're feeling right now, one word that the spirit has given you, one word the universe has given you, and expound on that word.
Okay, well, my word today would be hope. I think we all need to have hope that everything's going to work out. I know times are trying for everybody right now. And just have hope that we're going to get through this and work together and do the things that make you happy. For me, that's going out and writing or petting my cat or my dog or do what makes you happy so that you have that in your heart, the hope in your heart.
Well, Miss Tammy, thank you. You got me over here tearing up. So I needed to hear that. Hope is important right now. And I want to thank you. You've raised an excellent human being. So that tells me a lot about you as a person. And we're grateful for Lauren as a community. And we're grateful for you for producing such a wonderful child.
I wouldn't be here without her, man. She's like everything to me. This is the only one.
Okay. So
best mom.
I will see you guys shortly.
Okay.
Thank you, Ebony, for doing this.
Thank you.
We love you, Ebony.
I love you too.
I miss you.
All right, so we're at the closing. I thank Miss Tammy for bringing up hope. I also have a quote today. I always do a quote at the end. And my quote is, "Until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened." And that is by Anatole France. And so I am signing off. Thank you for tuning in. And I'm sending you love. And like Miss Tammy said, I'm sending you a little bit of hope through the teleconnect internet. I'm sending you love. All right. Alexa, continue. Now I'm going to party out. Hey. And if you're trying to make it, the only push you aside. They really don't have. Y'all see these fringes? Ask them where they're going. They don't know. Hey, Miss Joanne, I see you. Hey. Hey, Lala, I see you, girl. All right, I'll see you guys later. Sending you love.